Can't see me. I'm waving to each other. We can't see.
Good morning. I'd like to call the June meeting of the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board to order. And if I can remind all of our potential speakers to fill out a card back there in the corner, or there's a QR code and you can do it online. Chris?
Ms. Blair,
Here.
Ms. Cantu,
Here.
Dr. Olson. Here. Ms. Chu,
Here.
Chair Stroner.
Here. As you can tell, one of our board members, Celeste Cantu, will be participating remotely in this meeting in accordance with the provisions of the Bagley-Keene Open Meetings Act, specifically Government Code Section 11123.2. Remote participation requires that a quorum of the board of members be physically present at a single conference location that is open, visible, and audible to the public. Board member Celeste Cantu may proceed with remotely participating in this meeting. Although she needs to disclose her precise location, she must disclose whether there are any individuals 18 or older present in the same room as her, as well as the general nature of her relationship with those individuals. Board member Cantu, do you have any individuals 18 years or older present with you?
No, I do not.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Board Member Cantu. You are required to remain on camera for the entire open portion of this meeting unless there's a poor internet connection or would be technologically impractical to do so. If you need to turn off the camera for any portion of the meeting, you must announce the reason for doing so. And then I was supposed to call the roll. We already did that. Thank you. At this time, we enter into a time of public forum, and I think we have some special guests from Operation, or let's see. Yeah. Outdoor Outreach. Do we have our guests from Outdoor Outreach?
Chair Strawn, if I could, before you move on, I'd like
Oh, you
to
wanna do it?
give the instructions for the folks online on how to
Sure.
participate.
Yeah. Okay.
So good morning, Chair and members of the board. I'm Kelly Dorsey, Assistant Executive Officer. Before we start the public forum today, I'd like to share some instructions on how to participate and comment using Zoom. Online participants that would like to comment during the public forum or during one of the board items must register for and sign into the Zoom webinar via computer or phone. Information on how to register for Zoom webinar is located on the San Diego Water Board meeting agenda webpage. Public comments will be accepted for each item after all presentations for the item are complete. If you are using Zoom on a computer or tablet, please use the raise hand function to indicate you wish to comment. If you are calling into Zoom from a phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. There's a 3-minute limit on each public commenter. However, the time could be extended by the chair's discretion. For those participating by Zoom, you will see a timer on the screen and will hear beeping when your time is up. Lastly, please state your name for the record before you speak, and please mute your microphone if you are not speaking. Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to welcome our special guest this morning from Outdoor Outreach. It's always a pleasure to have you folks join us. If you would come up to the mic and adjust it and then Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having us here today. Good morning to everyone. My name is Manuel Belmonte. I go by he, him, or el pronouns. I'm the current operations manager at Outdoor Outreach. We're a San Diego-based nonprofit who empowers youth through outdoor recreational activities. So from kayaking to surfing to mountain biking and rock climbing and all these things. We work to break down barriers to outdoor access and help young people connect with and care for our region's natural spaces. My role is to train and educate our field instructors on how to be outdoor guides within the environments that we work in. So again, thank you for the chance to speak today and share a little bit about who we are and our shared commitment to protecting San Diego's waterways. We're grateful for the board's leadership in protecting water quality and holding polluters accountable. Your work makes a real difference in our community's work. So pollution such as sewage spills and transboundary flows directly impact the spaces where we surf, kayak, and enjoy, including the San Diego Bay and Tijuana River Valley. Our participants and many of our staff often come from communities that are disproportionately affected by poor water quality. For us, clean water is a matter of equity. Without clean water, our youth lose access to safe, healthy, and enriching outdoor experiences. Thanks to the support from Cal EPA's Environmental Justice Action Grants program, we're training staff on South Bay water quality issues to inform our risk management practices and ensure our programs adapt to environmental challenges to keep participants safe. Since 2022, when water quality analysis were improved, we have not been able to run surf programs out of Imperial Beach due to toxic waters, which implies that before then, we were more likely running programming in polluted waters for years. Consequently, all the youth that came out on IB surf programs, which are from the southern part of San Diego, were learning how to catch their first waves in toxic waters, right? So now, instead of bringing youth from southern San Diego to their nearest beaches, we have to transport them all the way up to La Jolla, which makes integrating surfing into their daily lives and the benefits that come from this healthy hobby less accessible. So our staff are trained to find most recent water quality data using SD Beach Info and adapt programs as needed when new measurements are published. Last year, we had to pivot so many kayaking stand-up paddleboard trips from Tidelands Park in the San Diego Bay all the way up to Carlsbad Lagoon that we started treating Tidelands Park similar to IB in that we just avoid that location because it becomes a bigger hassle to try and adapt the day of, we decided not to go through that hassle. And so our, so on another note, on our fishing programs at the J Street Marina in Chula Vista, instructors talk to participants about why it's not safe to take fish you catch home for dinner because of the San Diego Bay's water pollution. Furthermore, our instructors also know that they even have to call the county parks rangers on soil quality because on some occasions, even our mountain biking programs are forced to move out of the Tijuana River Valley due to transboundary runoff. We know now to simply avoid Imperial Beach and the potential risks that the Tijuana River Valley can be and don't want the San Diego Bay to be put on the same category. So in conclusion, we would love to explore how our work aligns with the board's goals for community engagement and water quality improvements. We see opportunity with a future SEP program, which could fund programs that take youth impacted by pollution and expand their opportunities for accessing natural spaces safely and educate them on water hazards in their local waters, turning enforcement actions into opportunities for healing and education. Additionally, we could create a channel for youth participants to come provide comments to the board based on what they see out in their communities and in their waterways. So we see the board as the key ally in ensuring that all San Diegans can enjoy safe, clean waterways. So again, thank you so much. And we look forward to opportunity to advance this work together.
Tiffany?
Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Good morning. Thank you to the board for the opportunity to speak and introduce our organization today. And we also appreciate your leadership in protecting this region's waterways. My name is Tiffany Curry. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the public policy coordinator at Outdoor Outreach. I work with our youth and advancing our priority of outdoor access. Outdoor Outreach's mission is about access, connecting youth to outdoor spaces, connecting them to their communities, building lifelong connections, and all of that depends on accessible, clean environments. That's why we joined California Ocean Day in May. We were able to bring up 3 youth participants and 5 staff to use their voices directly with decision makers at the state. One of our youth, Mari Fer, was able to use her voice and speak directly about how the Tijuana River pollution crisis has impacted not only her, but her community, and how this is more than an environmental issue, but an issue of public health. These are the stories that policymakers need to hear. And though she couldn't be here today in person, Mari Fer wanted to share the following with you today. These are her words. As a local resident of the areas affected by the Tijuana River pollution crisis, it is an understatement to say that it has dramatically affected the quality of life for not only myself, but my entire community. Every resident has to endure it. As you drive around the neighborhoods of Imperial Beach and South San Diego, you see homes openly advocating with their hung up posters of Stop the Stink. To an outsider phrase, this might simply come off as a minimal disturbance in air quality or that it just smells bad. The truth is, the lack of regulatory measures to control the pollution crisis is far more life-altering than it lets on. For one, I'd like to share how every night the smell of sewage infiltrates itself into my home, and it causes migraines, indigestion, and difficulty breathing. The only thing that we can do is close our doors and windows at night and hope that it doesn't come in, which most of the time is not enough. Oftentimes I'm grateful during the day because I know that when the sun is out, we don't have to worry about it, and when nighttime hits is when we do. When the sun is out, for those who would like to partake in water activities, well, we can't. The water has been polluted for so long that with any mention of going to the beach, we know that Imperial Beach is never an option. The Tijuana River pollution crisis is so much more than a recreational and environmental problem for those who want to get in the water. It is also a daily health issue for those for those living in the surrounding area. All we wish is for breathable air and clean water. Though she's not here, I'd like to express gratitude to Mari Fer, one of our youth participants, for sharing her personal experience today. And we see the board as a key partner in helping bringing those stories to the table. We'd love to explore future opportunities, like Manuel mentioned, maybe a potential SUP program that can turn enforcement actions of pollution into opportunities for healing and access to nature for those most impacted by the pollution, including our youth participants. We want to thank Executive Officer Gibson and the board staff for their continued support, and we would love to work together in future opportunities in bringing youth voices to inform board decisions. Thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. We appreciate you being here. At this time, we would like to present Kate Buckley. Kate, you want to step forward? We'd like to present Kate Buckley with our Superior Accomplishment Award for her initiative in creating Tableau dashboards for the Rec One Work Group's Data Subcommittee. These dashboards compile bacteria monitoring data from various sources to create a comprehensive tool for staff to query that data by data range, by date, range, location, sample type, etc. Lump it and export it for further analysis. With this effort, all the data is as real-time as the requirements to upload it and available in one spot. These dashboards will help us identify status and trends related to contact recreation that can result in more timely and effective regulatory responses. Kate trained herself on how to use Tableau and spent countless hours grooming the data for QA issues, coordinating with the various programs in the subcommittee to understand what questions they want answered. and what data they need for prioritizing response actions and making compliance determinations. This effort is unquestionably above her normal requirements, which are focused on enforcement of sewage spills. But by creating these tools, we can pivot our compliance assessment to prevent or minimize such large spills, or at least better understand their fate in terms of water quality monitoring. At this point, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Second.
Second,
It's a tie. Chris, would you call roll, please?
Ms. Blair,
Aye.
Ms. Cantu,
aye.
Dr. Olson,
Aye.
Ms. Chu,
Aye.
Chair Strawn.
Aye.
Mayor's motion carries.
Thank you. At this point, we go into the executive officer's reports. I think we've all, or should I, is Nicole on board? We'll do her first, if that's okay.
Good morning, Chair Strawn. I believe that State Board Liaison Nicole Morgan is online for us today.
All right, thank you. Nicole, thank you for taking time out of your vacation to join us for a few minutes this morning. We appreciate you being here.
Good morning, Chair Strawn. As Executive Officer Gibson is laughing at me in my vacation mode this week. Ran into him yesterday at SQUIRP at the Nutrients Workshop. It was great to see him and a great discussion was had. So just want to highlight a couple of items for you this morning. So annually, the State Board updates its Clean Water State Revolving Fund and Drinking Water State Revolving Fund intended use plans. Behind those are policies for both programs, which help guide how those intended use plans are updated each year. And so those policies are not updated that often. It's every few years. And so this year we did do updates, and those came before the State Board and were adopted on May 6th. So just another item that the State Board does annually is our fee stakeholder meetings to take a look at the fees and to see if any adjustments are needed. So those are ongoing right now. Just wanted to highlight that the drinking water and ELAP meeting, it was yesterday, the 10th, I believe today's 11th, yes. And today is water quality and water rights. So the drinking water program updated the cross-connection control requirements. And so that was a large update. It had not been updated in a very long time. So a lot of updates were, did occur. We've received a lot of feedback on that. So a couple of things are happening. These drinking water staff are working on just some guidance, some information to help out all of our drinking water systems and those that have the potential for cross connection. And so also on June 17th, so next week, we're going to consider adoption of some revisions to the cross connection control. There's 3 C's in there, policy handbook. And so those are based on feedback that we have received from stakeholders and from the public. And so we're incorporating that feedback. Bear with us. There's a lot of feedback that we are receiving, and we're working to work with all of our districts and just make sure that we are bringing in the best information and continuing to update the handbook because once again, it was really outdated and there's a lot that's in there. And so, we hear the challenges and we are there to work with you, all the systems on it. Just an update, the Once Through Cooling Interim Mitigation Funds, that's something that has come up also. Also, questions to just how are those funds being used? Where are the funds going to? The amount that's going into that pool. And so we received an update on that, on it in, in May last month. And so there was a fact sheet and there will be, actually, that was just June 3rd. That was just last week. Wow. Okay. So the year's going by fast, but not that fast. So there is also a fact sheet that is out and our staff are accepting public feedback through June 21st on the fact sheet. Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA. So it's just a hot topic throughout the state, a lot of activities. We had 6 basins that were originally referred to us. An additional basin was referred earlier this year from DWR. So just last week, the state board returned its first basin back to DWR. So that was a big milestone. Just again, while the program has been around, the act has been around for over 10 years, this really is the initial the initial years that is really working its way through the state water board. So we're all learning together. And, it's been interesting. It's been educational. And it was just a really good meeting. And we really just do want to congratulate Chowchilla really for working with state board staff, working with DWR to correct the deficiencies that have been identified. And we were able to return them back to DWR. So that concludes the items I wanted to highlight for you all. I am here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Nicole. And now you can go enjoy your vacation. Dave, do you have anything to add to your executive officer's report? If not, I'll go ahead and ask for comments from the board.
Just a couple of things. First of all, thank you to Nicole Morgan for joining us. Her vacations are like mine, work. But really glad that she made it a priority to be with us yesterday at the Nutrient Summit and then today. With the board's discretion, I'd like to introduce several new staff to our office now and ask you to join us in welcoming them. I'd like to introduce Kaylee Popovich, environmental scientist working in our agriculture and waste management unit. Welcome, Kaylee. Brandy White, environmental scientist working in our restoration and protection planning unit. Is Brandy here today? It is. She's working hard somewhere else. Martin Pham, we stole him from Region 4, Water Resource Control Engineer working now in our Water Sustainability and Protection Unit. Welcome, Martin. And Carolina Gui, scientific aide working in mission support, and Fan Do, we're a student assistant working in agriculture and waste management. We'll be fortunate to welcome 1 or 2 more people and perhaps announce a promotion by the next meeting. We're really excited at the opportunity to be able to fill vacancies. We had to hold vacant all last year, and we have a lot of work to catch up on, so they have a lot ahead of them right now. I did mention, and Nicole Morgan mentioned it also, that yesterday all 9 regions and the state board met to discuss nutrients and how we're regulating them for inland waters. Touched on the coastal issues, and so I reported on the use by the regional board of the CSCI and the algae biotic index, and also our approach on the Santa Margarita nutrients and other water bodies in our region where we have both municipal water supply at stake and also water quality issues at stake. So we will see what that discussion leads to. But in terms of state board policy, we made it very clear that regional discretion maintains a priority, and that indeed we need to have a water body by water body approach in some cases, rather than one number that tries to fit all water bodies in all circumstances, from ag drains in the Central Valley to the San Diego River. So more to that on the next meeting. And also, as you know, Chair Strawn and Board Member Cantu, we attended the biological workshops representing the San Diego Regional Board's work in adopting biological objectives on May 5th. We are preparing right now resolution language for the state board's consideration and responding to comments we received on that. And we'll have more to report, I believe, at the next meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you for keeping the biological objectives in center stage. Board members have any questions or comments about the executive officer's report? Go ahead.
Hi, I just would like to ask about the cannabis unit received 2 new applications. What I don't maybe you can explain to me a little better. We have 37 notices of action to commercial but 18 remain actively enrolled. So does that mean that the other just dropped out, or what does that mean? It's on page 8.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's on page 8. It's right underneath table 1.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Olson. If I could, I'd like to call upon Brian Corbalone of the
Sure.
cannabis unit to update us. I believe he's online.
Okay, great.
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So your question in terms of the executive officer's report, I'm pulling up that table now so I can make sure I see exactly what okay, so you're asking about the difference between active enrollees versus enrollment. Is that did I understand
Yes, I
correctly?
guess notice of action.
Notice of action.
It
So-
says that some of them you have 18 that remain enrolled, but
Mhm.
they're 37, so.
Yeah, so the 18 are actively enrolled in the program. So those are folks that have an active notice of applicability and are enrolled in the program. In terms of the other numbers, so the 25 active applications, why you would have an active application would be somebody submitted an application, but they may not have made their payment yet, or it's on hold for some other reason. So it's basically an application was submitted to us, but it's not issued. It's in draft, if you will, until we get payment or until we clear any flags that need to be cleared before we were to issue them a notice of applicability. That's not uncommon in the program. Many individuals and businesses would apply for an application preemptively before they get permits from the county or other regulatory state agents or other state or local regulatory agencies, just to have kind of all of their ducks in a row so that they're ready to go once they get that approval, through all the various agencies. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and my second question then is about, it says San Diego does not permit commercial cannabis cultivation in unincorporated areas. So could we give them an NOA if they're in an unincorporated area or no?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, the water boards, our policy in general, and this is statewide, is that if an applicant applies with the water boards and they make their payment and there's no flags on that application, we would issue them a notice of applicability. I want to be clear that a notice of applicability does not authorize them to cultivate cannabis. The water boards is not the licensing agency for cultivation. So the notice of applicability gives them enrollment in the statewide general order. But that, like I said, that doesn't mean they can cultivate cannabis. They would still need to get all of their licenses through the Department of Cannabis Control and then through local authority. So to answer your question, yes, if somebody applied in unincorporated San Diego County, they didn't have local authority to cultivate cannabis at this time, we could still issue a notice of applicability.
Okay, great. Thank you for correcting me. I said notice of action, not notice of applicability. So
No problem. And if I may add one more thing, the San Diego County is also in the process of moving through an ordinance to regulate or to allow and prohibit commercial cannabis cultivation or commercial cannabis activities, including cultivation. And we have been involved in that process from the beginning. That started in 2021. And we're still moving forward with that. Most recently, they submitted a draft environmental impact report, which the water boards as well as Fish and Wildlife have provided comments on. And we do meet fairly regularly with the county as they move through that process.
well, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yes.
It's funny, you just answered in your last part my question regarding where are we working with the county as they're setting up their regulation? I guess not regulation, their process to approve any local approval for cannabis cultivation, correct? Do you have a timeline of when that is happening?
I'm not sure of their current timeline. Like I said, most recently, they did publish a draft environmental impact report that came out in January, I believe. And they had comments through, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but comments, shortly, the comment period shortly after that, which we provided. That comment period is now closed, and I believe they are evaluating those comments now. I'm not sure of the county's timeline for when they will be publishing the final environmental impact report and going through that process. I don't want to comment on their timeline, but it is moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Thank you, Chair Strawn. I would like to add a very important acknowledgement today. Morelli Lacourtois of our staff was presented with an award by ASCE for the outstanding civil engineer and community service. And also Michelle Santillon and Morelli represented the regional board at the Engineering and Earth Fair Day, representing our staff again really well in our mission. So I want to acknowledge their awards and their contribution today to our outreach.
Yes, yay, thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. Unless there is a request from the board or the public to comment or for an item to be removed from the consent calendar, we will call for a motion in a second to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Betty. A
I can
second.
second.
Thank you, Yen.
Second.
Chris, you want to call roll, please?
Ms. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Cantu,
Yes.
Dr. Olson,
Aye.
Ms. Chu,
Yes.
and Chair Strawn.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to,
Chair Strawn, if I could, we overlooked item number 3. I didn't include it in my executive officer's report, but I have a
Oh,
few
I'm
things
sorry.
to report
Yeah, I skipped it.
on border issues and appreciate our comments we
Yeah.
received this morning in terms of water quality and air quality and the inaccessibility of recreational opportunities, as well as health impacts in Imperial Beach and South San Diego Bay. Sadly, we're only too familiar with these issues, as you well know. I do want to report to the board that on May 15th, I met with the new commissioner, Chad McIntosh, and the new regional administrator for Region 9 EPA, Josh F.W. Cook. We discussed an ongoing proposal to increase the treatment capacity at the International Boundary and Water Treatment Plant by 10 million gallons. There are a number of steps we'll have to take that will require an NPDES permit amendment. They identified a time frame, a goal of 100 days. Optimistic, even in a very simple permit amendment, this one will not be simple. While it is important to reduce transboundary flows by any means practicable, we also have to make sure we comply with the law, EPA regulations, et cetera. We also want to make sure that we don't simply worsen offshore water conditions by an expedient measure. And part of their proposal is to treat 2 additional million gallons per day to secondary, but 8 million gallons per day to primary, and then blend it with the 27 million gallons of secondary to reduce the transboundary flows and increase the capacity by 35 million gallons per day. This while they're on the process of doing the progressive design, build, and expansion of the treatment plant. We are working closely with EPA and IBWC and their contractor, Stantec. We met again with them last week. We received more information. We will be moving forward with an NPDES permit amendment. We are very grateful to the state board for offering us staff assistance. And so we're very grateful to have that engineer on our team that will make us able to bring this to you for your consideration closer to 100 days, but not probably within 100 days. For example, there will be public review and comment of 45 days minimum, and we'll want to be able to consider those comments and respond to them appropriately with any changes to the order. This may also be accompanied by a time schedule order. As there is a proposed blending, we need to make sure that they achieve full secondary with the design capacity increase ultimately of 50 million gallons per day, but 35 as soon as they come on. It is going to be complicated, but we will be working closely with them and do what we can to compress internal review times in order to bring that action to you for your consideration. Hypothetically, if the board were able to approve it on a date, they could increase the capacity of the plant immediately by 10 million gallons. It won't be a build in or a phase in. They will be able to start right away. So there could be some relief on that front. I was also at a meeting with EPA and IBWC in which they showed one slide of a report from the Mexico section of IBWC identifying flows in the Tijuana River from suspect sources in October to November. And from my quick glance and screen grab, I was able to see that there were about 14.57 million gallons of suspect water entering the Tijuana River at multiple locations. 5 of those locations were more than 1 million gallons per day. We are hopeful that the reports we've received from the Mexico and US sections of IBWC is that they're identifying and abating those sources, bringing those flows down. Thankfully, we can also say that the flows have reduced. Right now, we're looking at between 4.6 and 23 million gallons per day. And the air quality issues the last several days have finally improved. It's long overdue, but those will only be sustained if we're able to truly end the transboundary flows of sewage from Tijuana into the Imperial Valley and hopefully flush out the accumulated materials in the Tijuana River that will break down and result in hydrogen sulfide. Our beach closures are sadly at 1,280 days now consecutively. Again, because not only the Tijuana River is flowing with wastewater, but there are treated and untreated wastewater discharges in Mexico to the coastal waters, which then travel upshore into the Coronado Bight. So our staff will be participating and meeting with EPA on an ongoing basis. And I want to resurrect again a request to the State Board for cleanup and abatement account funds for a sediment quality objective analysis of the Tijuana River estuary. In particular, long-term flows of sewage with potential industrial releases could accumulate metals and other toxic contaminants in the sediments. And it's past time that we evaluated those conditions. So I will work with the staff to prepare a proposal for State Board to consider. We would work with the Southern California Coastal Water Research Project to carry it out if the funding is authorized. We've also provided a list of projects to the State Board to consider for Proposition 4. One of those projects touches back on the treatment plant expansion. There was interest on the part of the commissioner and the administrator to increase the capacity of the treatment plant even beyond the proposed 50 million gallons per day to 60 million gallons per day, full secondary. So there's an opportunity for the state to partner with IBWC and help fund that incremental increase by another 10 million gallons per day. That helps the treatment plant be prepared to grow as Tijuana continues to grow so that wastewater flows do not by default end up in the river rather than in the collection system and treatment plants. There's always much more to report unless there are any particular questions on the border issues. I'll just close by pointing out that CDC is now beginning their epidemiology study, and I will be referring Dr. Olson's question to them regarding the chronic and acute health effects in school-age children from overnight exposures to hydrogen sulfide gases, which we've seen so much over the last couple of years. Yes, Dr. Olson.
I just wanted to know, so on, do we know if the decrease in the amount of air pollution that people are sensing or perceiving or is being measured, is it due to a reduction in sewage into the river? Or is it due to a change of weather conditions so that we're no longer getting the inversion layers at this point?
I'm quite confident, Dr. Olson, that it is all of the above. A strong inversion layer tends to hold that hydrogen sulfide close to the ground, and the overnight concentrations have been the highest because of the lack of sunlight to burn it off. But the flows have reduced, and the overnight flows last night were about 9 million gallons. The flows are unfortunately still increasing at night compared to daytime. Again, the sources of that in the operation of the collection system is unfortunately not well communicated by Mexico. Although they've fixed the international collector and pump station 1 is operating, and both pipelines are now carrying wastewater and river flows to the ocean. DB-Seal has been operating. We still see overnight flows that are unacceptably high, as in larger than 0.
Okay, so I had 2 other questions, and they both involve timelines. So the timeline that you think when we will actually start sampling the sediments of the area, And the other is for CDC to actually start gathering data.
The CDC is starting this week. They released a fact sheet that I will share with the board in the next report. We'll put it up on our website so that people can see it. It has 2 contact information there, emails that I will be using to access and ask for the addition of child health issues. And then the sediment quality objective monitoring, that depends on whether or not the funding is approved by state board. It would not happen before the fall of this year. More likely it would occur next year. There's a seasonality to that. And at this point in time, because of the budget shortfalls, we don't have lab capacity or funding anymore in this agency to do that kind of work. So it would have to be funds from the state cleanup and abatement account if we're able to address that issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Gibson, thank you for the report, and it's nice to have some good news there as well. But you mentioned earlier about the legal flow. Is that flow coming from south of the border, or where's the flow, and who would be investigating that?
So that those are flows to the Tijuana River and tributaries in Mexico. The commission, the Mexico section of IBWC, they don't have authority to review that. They have the authority to monitor that. So they will be working with the appropriate state and federal agencies in Mexico to identify and, we hope, abate those sources. As I mentioned, PBCLA is running, and it can pump about 30 million gallons per day right now to the coast where it's not treated. It's discharged on the coast untreated. It becomes part of our beach closure problems and the problems in Imperial Beach a few days later. It's the main flows down the river itself which are causing the air quality impacts and the majority of the impacts for beach closures from Imperial Beach north to Coronado. And it was closed again yesterday. Coronado was. So those flows are in Mexico. The collector Alomar was the largest at 3.3 million gallons per day. And that's rather inexplicable and unacceptable, and we hope that the Mexican agencies are able to begin addressing those flows. Several of the Minute 328 projects, like the River Gates project, would help abate some of those flows in the Tijuana River that are currently being released via storm drains to the river. But most of those projects are either not entirely funded or they're still undergoing technical report review in Mexico following their laws and regulations. So while there's some good news, I think we will be happy when we actually see the fruits of this investment in labor and see the flows ended. That is when we will be able to be truly grateful for the results. Lastly, I'll just close by mentioning that I did present an update at the Industrial Environmental Association conference last week, along with Dr. Gilbert Anaya of IBWC. We jointly reported on Minute 320, Minute 328, and the permit amendment fast track that I mentioned a few moments ago.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for skipping over that. I'm working off of 2 different agendas. I have the one that I put all my scribbled notes on, and then I got the clean one this morning. So I'm bouncing
Thank you.
across. I missed it. We didn't intentionally miss that, although it's not all good news. Moving on to items 5 and 6. These items will be discussed jointly, but the board will vote on each one separately. The comments are expected to take less than an hour. The board will now consider items 5 and 6, which are 2 separate settlement agreements and stipulations for entry of administrative civil liability. One is in the matter of the City of San Diego January 2023 sanitary sewer spill to San Diego Bay and San Diego River. It's tentative order R9-2025-0010. And the other is a matter of City of San Diego, March 2023 sanitary sewer spill to Lake Hodges Reservoir, tentative order R9-2025-0053. This proceeding is not an evidentiary hearing, and the board will not be considering evidence as presented by the parties. As a result, no oath will be administered, and the board cannot adjourn to closed session to deliberate the proposed settlement. The board will hear comments on the proposed settlement from the parties and any interested persons, but will not be able to make changes to the settlement agreement. The board will either approve or reject the proposed settlements. If the board approves the proposed settlement, it would do so by adopting the tentative order for a corresponding settlement. If the board rejects the proposed settlement, the board could direct the parties to consider their ability to come back at a later date with a different settlement addressing the board's stated concerns. Otherwise, if no settlement is approved, the ACL complaint may proceed on an evidentiary hearing at a future meeting. For this proceeding, the staff functions are separated into an advisory team and the prosecution team. The regional board's advisory team includes our executive officer and our attorney. The prosecution team will identify its members during the presentation. And with that, Christina, it's up to you. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair Strawn and members of the board. My name is Christina Arias. I am a water resource control engineer in the Compliance Assurance Unit. On behalf of the prosecution team and the City of San Diego, all of which are here with me today, I would like to introduce items 5 and 6 for your consideration, which pertain to 2 enforcement actions in the form of 2 stipulated settlement agreements for administrative civil liability, developed in response to 2 sewage spills from the City of San Diego's sanitary sewer system in 2023. The 2 enforcement orders for your consideration were developed through confidential settlement negotiations between the prosecution team and the City of San Diego. Item 5 is consideration of adoption of tentative administrative civil liability, or ACL, order number R9-2025-0010, which establishes a penalty of $11,419,608 for a sewage spill in January of 2023 that resulted in a discharge of 9,781,765 gallons of untreated sewage to San Diego Bay and the San Diego River. Item 6 is consideration of adoption of tentative ACL order number R9-2025-0053, which establishes a penalty of $35,045 for a sewage spill in March 2023 that resulted in a discharge of 3,725 gallons of sewage to Lake Hodges Reservoir. Both of these spills affected key beneficial uses in key areas for those beneficial uses, and thus are a priority for San Diego Water Board enforcement. Today, I will discuss the 2 tentative orders in one presentation, including the circumstances of each spill and the areas affected. However, each item will require its own vote. I anticipate the board will want more time to discuss and ask questions about item number 5, so I'm actually going to cover item number 6 first. Before I get to the sewage spills, I did want to take a moment to talk about the timeline associated with our order development. It is my understanding that at the April board meeting just 2 months ago, there were some questions regarding our timeline and our enforcement processes. The large spill to San Diego Bay occurred in January of 2023. In February, the staff that was overseeing the program at the time issued an investigative order to the city to learn more about the circumstances causing the spill and what the city was doing to fix the problems. In March of 2023, the smaller spill to Lake Hodges occurred. In April, the city submitted their response to the investigative order, and in May, the staff issued an investigative order for the spill to Lake Hodges. In July, the city submitted their response. In November 2023, our internal compliance oversight group met and decided to prioritize both spills for formal enforcement and assign the cases to the Compliance Assurance Unit. That's when we formed the prosecution team and initiated a deep dive investigation, which included reviewing IO responses, spill reports, sewer system management plans, and other documents. In March of 2024, the prosecution team approached the city and offered to engage in confidential settlement negotiations, and the city agreed. We met several times over the next few months to discuss the facts of the cases and possible terms of a settlement. In December, we reached an agreement with the Public Utilities Department. Then the city had to go through its own internal processes to gain full approval, which culminated in city council approval in March of 2025. As soon as we had a signed order, we posted it on our website for a 30-day public review and comment period. And since then, we've been preparing for today's hearing. I just want to give a little bit of background information about the regional sewer system. The city of San Diego owns and operates the municipal sanitary sewer system of the city. The area of coverage is shown here in yellow. The municipal system provides wastewater conveyance and treatment to its residents and businesses. The metropolitan sewerage system, or metro system, serves the city and 12 municipalities and special districts in the region, shown here by this grayish color. They share in the use of the city's regional wastewater facilities, including major pump stations and wastewater treatment plants. The metro system serves about 2.3 million residents countywide and covers over 450 square miles. So I'm showing you the locations of the two spills. The Lake Hodges spill up on the north of the screen occurred, let's see, within the city's municipal sewer system, and the spill to San Diego Bay shown, let's see, can you guys see? There we go. The spill to San Diego Bay occurred in the metro system. All right, now let's talk about the spills. In March 2023, the city's municipal sewer system failed when a joint inside a pump vault corroded and caused sewage to leak from the pipe connection. This resulted in a discharge of 3,725 gallons of sewage to the waters of Lake Hodges, a drinking water reservoir in North County on the west side of Interstate 15. This is a schematic of the sewer system overlaid on a satellite image. Let's see. So this over here on the right side running north-south is Interstate 15. Just west of the Interstate 15 by this yellow dot, this yellow square indicates pump station 77. And this sort of peanut-shaped object is the overflow structure for the pump station. The green line shows the force main, and so sewage is pumped in the northwesterly direction. When the force main reaches the south force main vault, the force main splits up in two parallel lines, smaller diameter, and they traverse the lake for about 2,000 feet underground. Once it reaches the north vault, it's then connected to one main force main again. On March 24th, 2023, a city contractor noticed water leaking from the south force main vault. The contractor contacted the city, and the city staff immediately responded and took several actions, such as they stopped pumping to the vault and began using the overflow structure at the pump station. They created berms using sandbags and fiber rolls to slow or stop the flow from reaching the lake. They used portable pumps to pump out the sewage trapped in the vault in order to access the components inside the vault. Additionally, the access roads in this area had been washed out in recent rains. The city had to build emergency access roads to bring the heavy equipment to this location. While the repair and hydrostatic pressure testing was taking place, the city used boats and barges to remove sewage from the area and return it to the sewer system. Also, the city took samples of fecal indicator bacteria in multiple locations around the lake in the 5 days following the spill. The city suspended the use of water from Lake Hodges for domestic purposes for 3 days as a precaution, until bacteria levels indicated that the spill had no adverse effects to the drinking water supply. The city conducted 2 biological assessments, one a few days after the spill occurred and a second one 2 months later to assess impacts to the native vegetation and wildlife. The city found some discoloration of some aquatic plants, but did not observe evidence of impacts to fish or wildlife. When the emergency road was completed, the city commenced with the repair. This involved removing the corroded T-joint and installing a temporary connection called a spool, and you can see the repair work taking place with this photo. This allowed the city to put the pump station 77 back into service. This repair was completed 7 days after the spill began. The city then completed a capital improvement project in July of 2023 to install the new T-joint. The city completed an assessment of the North Force main vault to ensure the integrity of the components since they are of similar age as the components of the South Force main vault. Lake Hodges is a reservoir used for drinking water and supports many other beneficial uses. Lake Hodges supports contact and non-contact recreation and is surrounded by many miles of trails used for hiking and mountain biking. Lake Hodges provides habitat that supports both cold and warm water ecosystems and terrestrial ecosystems and provides habitat for the survival of rare or endangered species. Lake Hodges is a key area for the key municipal beneficial use and thus the San Diego Water Board priority for protection. The spill impaired the municipal beneficial use as the city suspended the domestic use of water from the lake for 3 days. An ACL is appropriate for this violation. Which brings us to our proposed settlement. The goal of the prosecution team was to develop an enforcement action that is fair, appropriate, and has the deterrent effect, meaning that it motivates the discharger to change its behavior. Using the State Water Resources Control Board's enforcement policy and its penalty calculation methodology as a guide, the prosecution team proposed and the city accepted a penalty of $35,045. A portion of the liability, or $10,080, will be suspended and applied towards a supplemental environmental project, specifically the Southern California Stormwater Monitoring Coalition's Regional Watershed Monitoring Program. The SEP supplements regional monitoring program work that would not otherwise be funded by the existing work plan. The monitoring program collects data annually on water quality, physical habitat, and riparian conditions and biological communities. As I mentioned earlier, the city completed the necessary repairs to the infrastructure at the pump vaults that should prevent a spill from happening at this location. We posted the tentative order for a 30-day public review and comment period in March of 2025 and received no comments. The prosecution team believes the proposed settlement accomplishes our enforcement objectives, and we recommend that you adopt tentative order R9-2025-0053. So I can move on to discuss the spill to San Diego Bay, item 5, or we can entertain questions.
I just had a quick question about the north pump, the assessment that the city did. What was the result of that?
I believe the city did not find any any repairs needed to take place. I think maybe some refurbishment that they conducted, or
Celeste Cantu also has a question.
You hear me?
oh, should be working.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm Doug Campbell. I'm an assistant director with the City of San Diego Public Utilities Department. Our assessment of the T on the north vault, the sort of the twin of the one that failed on the south, showed it was in very good condition. No corrosion was observed. A couple places required recoating for further corrosion protection, but it was found to be in very good shape.
Yeah, do you want to come back? The question's gonna be for you to answer. How often does the city check its joints and so forth for as an amateur?
Sure, all the assets in our collection system are on a regular inspection schedule, kind of dependent on their past history. Some of them where we have problem spots will be on more frequent inspection schedules, as close as a month. Others are on longer schedules. This location, being a force main and being in sort of remote, is on one of the longer schedules, but is on our regular inspection schedule.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know who it's appropriate to ask this of, but whomever, I'd appreciate it. So I'd like to know if we have any protocol for the size of the pump and the size of the overflow required. So that may be under the jurisdiction of the city, it may be under the jurisdiction of the water board. I'm sorry, I don't know, and I'd like to understand that.
So the question is, we have that pond that Christina mentioned, the peanut-shaped object, which is sort of an overflow. Should we have a failure of the pump station, then we can divert to that pond. Until that time fills up, we have to fix the problem.
And the pond's location if the pond fills up, it won't spill into the reservoir, is that correct?
Would it to overflow, it would head towards the reservoir, but it does give us, I think it's on the order of 3 days was the design standard used when this pump station was built in 1977. During our remediation of this issue and as we tried to address it, we did see the pond approach overflow, but we're able to put the pump station back in service temporarily while we collected what came out of the T to ensure that we didn't have any additional sewage reach the reservoir.
And do you inspect pumps associated with forced mains more frequently than you do pumps that are associated with gravity feeds?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think they're all grouped together based on likelihood of failure. I don't think there's different philosophies for force mains versus gravity.
But isn't it true that force mains have more problems than gravity flow?
I'm not sure that we've seen that in our system. The places we tend to have lots of issues are places where we'll see root intrusion, grease clogs, things like that, which don't tend to be the case with force mains. With force mains, it's more, there's lots of scouring. You don't see root intrusion. It's under pressure.
All right, so it brings me then to another question, which is that says it's not the pump. It says it's a problem in the pipe. If you have root intrusion, you shouldn't have root intrusion into your pump mechanisms, would be
correct.
So since you mentioned that in regard to this situation, what's your frequency of looking at the pipes that could create such a factor? And just to say, I don't know about, obviously I don't know about your system, but I do know about a lot of systems, and force mains are more problematic. So I would hope that you at least look at that and validate that and have data to show us on that. So
yeah, we do have a robust condition assessment program. We have CCTV done by, I believe we have 7 trucks that the city operates. We also have a contractor that assists with our condition assessment.
So is
of
it
all of
on
our.
AI? Do you put it on AI? So it's done, so you don't have to have physical person inspecting. You've updated your system, so it's done by artificial intelligence.
We do CCTV. I believe it's still viewed by a person.
Okay. So there are a number of programs for that. It should aid you. It should reduce man hours, which I would think would be beneficial because it reduces costs. They can do something else as well.
Thank
So
you.
that's all I have on that. one.
Chair Strawn, Ms. Cantu also has a question for me.
I didn't look at the screen.
I know I could tell.
Celeste?
Had a question.
Thank you. Just a note, infrastructure will fail and spills will happen. I mean, they're pretty inevitable. But what I'm happy to see in this case is through the original citing from a private contractor who took the initiative to make the report, the city was able to respond expeditiously and minimize what otherwise would have been a much worse situation. So I really appreciate that. I want to commend the private contractor and the city for the response in this case.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you allow us to make a motion for this item, I would like to do so.
I think we're going to wait
Do we
till we
need to
hear them
wait?
both and then we'll take that motion.
We have to.
You can
take
vote
it
on them now.
Yeah,
if you like,
separately,
on this-
right? We
Yeah,
have
it's
to do
separate.
it
so if you
separately
vote now,
anyway.
you can.
So I'll make a motion to accept this settlement.
I'll second the motion.
Chair Strong, before we proceed, can you please check to see if we have any speakers online or in the room who wish to address the board on this matter?
I only have the one card and that's one, so he'll come later. I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
we haven't really heard the city's response here, but I'd allow you that opportunity if you wanted it. Chris, do we have anybody online? No? Thank you.
Just making sure.
So I guess we're ready to call the roll. Chris?
Is the motion seconded?
Yes.
Yeah. Betty,
I
you,
second it.
yeah, Betty seconded, I believe.
Ms. Blair? Aye. Ms. Cantu?
Aye.
Dr. Olson?
Aye.
Ms. Tu?
Aye.
Chair Strawn?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, great. Let's move on to item 5. And if you could put my slides back. Okay, thank you. So we just finished discussing the spill to Lake Hodges, and now we're going to discuss the spill to the San Diego Bay and River, which occurred here at Pump Station 2. And recall that Pump Station 2 serves not only the city, but the other metro agencies. Pump Station 2, which is located on North Harbor Drive, just west of the San Diego International Airport, is a critical part of the regional sewer system. Approximately 80% of the total sewage from the metro system flows through Pump Station 2 and is subsequently treated at the Point Loma wastewater treatment plant. Pump Station 2 was commissioned in 1963 and has 8 vertical shaft-driven pumps for a rated capacity of 432 million gallons a day. During high-flow conditions, such as large storm events, when the sewer system receives stormwater from inflow and infiltration, the city's normal operating procedure is to use at most 7 pumps, with 1 pump on standby.
Excuse me a second. Did you say 1953 or?
1963.
That's what I.
So now let's talk about the spill. On January 16th, 2023, after roughly 3 inches of rain fell in the span of 3 days, equipment at Pump Station 2 malfunctioned, which caused a sewer spill. This is a schematic of a wet well at Pump Station 2. Level sensors placed at the top continuously record the water level, which determines how many pumps are in use and the pump speeds. During the peak of the storm, the sewer system experienced stress from inflow and infiltration, causing the pump station to reach capacity quickly. The wet wells at Pump Station 2 filled up, causing wastewater to contact the level sensors placed above the wet wells. Once the sensors became wet, instead of communicating that the pumps needed to stay on at full speed, the sensors registered a false low-level reading, which caused all working pumps to shut off. This in turn caused sewage to back up into the system. A complicating factor is that 2 of the 8 pumps were offline and in need of repair that day. Had the city been able to utilize just 1 more pump, the wet wells may not have filled up to the point that the level sensors became inundated and the spill may not have occurred. The result of the malfunction was that sewage backed up into the system and discharged from several manholes. This is a schematic from the city, shows the areas impacted by the spill. The yellow-green area indicates the Pueblo subwatershed that drains to San Diego Bay. The dark blue area indicates the San Diego watershed that drains to the San Diego River. Pump Station 2 is shown by that orange dot just north of Harbor Island. Each of the red dots represents a spill location. As you can see, most of the spill locations are located in areas that drain to San Diego Bay. Some locations drain to the San Diego River, although the city was not aware of this at the time of the spill. The city was aware of the equipment malfunction immediately and took corrective actions to bring the pumps back online. The city partnered with the San Diego County Department of Environmental Health to take fecal indicator bacteria samples and post closure signs, such as the one I'm showing here, at publicly accessible locations. Closure signs were posted for 7 days from as far south as Coronado, as far east as the mouth of Choice Creek, and along the northern portion of San Diego Bay to Shelter Island. When the Department of Environmental Health determined that the water was safe for contact, meaning that samples collected on 2 consecutive days showed indicator bacteria level at safe levels, the closure was lifted. The city conducted a biological assessment in San Diego Bay following the spill, but did not find evidence of impacts to fish or wildlife. San Diego Bay is host to several beneficial uses, only some of which are listed here. San Diego Bay supports contact and non-contact recreation, shellfish harvesting, and commercial and subsistence fishing. San Diego Bay supports marine and estuarine ecosystems and is important for migratory birds and provides habitat for the survival of rare or endangered species. Similarly, the lower San Diego River supports several beneficial uses, such as contact and non-contact recreation, and provides habitat to support warm water ecosystems and terrestrial ecosystems. Both the San Diego Bay and San Diego River are key areas for key beneficial uses. These water bodies are priorities for San Diego Water Board protection, and an ACL is appropriate given the magnitude of the discharge and the sensitivities and importance of these 2 water bodies. Which brings us to our proposed settlement. Using the penalty calculation methodology, the prosecution team proposed and the city agreed to a penalty of more than $11.4 million to be paid to the state's cleanup and abatement account. The penalty will be paid by the city and the other metro agencies. The large dollar amount was primarily driven by 2 factors. First is the sheer volume. When almost 10 million gallons of untreated sewage discharges to receiving waters, the penalty is going to be high. The second is the harm to beneficial uses. In the methodology, this factor uses a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the worst. The enforcement policy states that a score of 5 or major harm involves chronic restrictions on beneficial uses, where chronic means a time span lasting more than 5 days. Since the bacteria levels exceeded water quality objectives around San Diego Bay for 7 days and caused beach closures and use restrictions, we used a score of 5, which resulted in a higher penalty amount. The parties explored the option to suspend part of the liability to go towards a SEP or an enhanced compliance action, but we ultimately could not agree on a project. Instead, the funds will go to the state's cleanup and abatement account, which provides grants for the cleanup or abatement of a condition of pollution when there are no viable responsible parties available to undertake the work. Finally, I'm happy to report that the key infrastructure that caused the spill at Pump Station 2 has been repaired or replaced. I took this photo from the inside of Pump Station 2 in January of this year when I participated in a program audit of the city's sewer system management program, which was led by US EPA. The audit included a site visit to Pump Station 2. The city demonstrated to the audit team that pump numbers 2 and 5, which had been out of commission on the day of the spill, were in fact working. The city showed us other improvements, including the recent completion of a power reliability capital improvement project to provide backup power to Pump Station 2 that will prevent loss of service in the event of power outages. Also, and this occurred in the weeks following the spill, the city replaced the damaged level sensors, purchased equipment guards, and reprogrammed the logic so that if the level sensors malfunction again, the pumps will not shut off without staff intervention. The prosecution team posted the tentative order for a 30-day public comment period on March 21st, 2025, and we received no comments. We believe the proposed settlement accomplishes our enforcement objectives, and we recommend that you adopt tentative order number R9-2025-0010. So if you have questions, I can field questions now, or the city is also prepared to make a statement. Okay.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Chair Strawn, members of the board and staff. I'm Juan Guerrero, Director of the City of San Diego's Public Utilities Department. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I want to begin by sharing our foremost goal is to never have a spill to avoid circumstances that would bring us before the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board. We take our responsibility to safely manage and operate one of the largest wastewater systems in the state seriously and strive every minute of every day to meet the high standards expected of us by both our regulators and ratepayers. We value the oversight role of the regional board, and we fully acknowledge and accept responsibility for being stewards of environmental and public health. We understand the significance of this incident, particularly given the environmental sensitivity and importance of receiving waters. While this event stemmed from several factors during extreme wet weather, we recognize that the burden to prevent these outcomes rests with us. We've learned from this event and have already implemented operational changes to reduce the risk of reoccurrence. Additionally, we're moving forward with a major capital improvement project to modernize Pump Station 2, the critical facility involved in this event. We've agreed to the proposed settlement amount and believe it represents a fair and appropriate resolution. More importantly, we're using this as an opportunity to strengthen the resilience and accountability of our system. We appreciate the regional board's collaboration and professional approach throughout this process and remain committed to working transparently with the board, your staff, and to protecting the environment and public health for all communities within the region. Thank you for your time.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Guerrero, do you know, is it best practice to have redundancy in terms of the wet water sensors? Is that typical to have some kind of redundancy, or is?
Sure. The two wet wells are connected hydraulically. The level is the same in both of them under normal operating conditions. So those two sensors would serve as the redundant monitor for each other. Additionally, there's a level sensor just upstream of the pump station that also kind of serves as a backup. The issue here being the programming of our DCS system, which was recommended by the original designers. You don't want to run your pumps if the wet wells were empty. You would damage them and be unable to move the wastewater at all. And so we have sort of shifted the risk in response to this event to where now that will not be automatic shut off of our pumps should the sensors read zero. Also, we did install redundant sensors in each wet well following this event, just to go that extra little bit.
That's what I was wanting to hear, that there is going to be, there is an improvement.
Yes.
And the additional sensors that you put in, did they include the guards that were mentioned in the report?
Yes. Yeah, the new sensors at the top are shielded, so that should they become inundated, they won't give that false empty reading. And then the redundant sensors are a different technology.
Following on, excuse me, following on with the sensors, I wanted to ask, and I also have a question regarding this of our staff, but the cost of a guard is very minimal, as it was stated in our report. Now, I wanted to ask, so everybody's been aware that we have atmospheric rivers. I think that we used to call them the Pineapple Express. And I believe they were originally published, became available as a scientific 1998. And so I would like to ask two-part question. One is, do all of these pumps that are subject, that could have some type of failure where the wet well would go up and could impact, are they all outfitted with guards now?
Yes. Yeah, we assessed them all following this event.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. And my other question is, how do you work to be proactive? In other words, we found out about this, you took action about this after an incident, but it seems to me that going forward, we know these high flow events will occur. So what's your strategy now?
Thank you for the question. Lisa Sly, Executive Assistant Director for Public Utilities. You touched on a very key point. So most of our systems are always designed for utilizing 20 years of data. These atmospheric rivers that you're referencing have really just been occurring in the last 5 years. So we are working with our partners, even though they've been identified in 1998, I do agree, but we've experienced them into 2020, 2023, and the impact on our system. So we're trying to utilize that current data in being able to identify strategies to address it. We have partnered on a regional basis. So it's not that we're trying to solve it ourselves, but we've partnered with our entire metro system. And what we are looking at is what is called inundation and infiltration from the storm events. So it's really just looking at the 5 years of data. What does that look like, and how could we do different strategies and utilize our system differently? Are there different improvements that we can maybe make upstream to slow down the flow of water into our pump station? We are taking that and working right now on that.
Well, that's excellent. My next question, and I don't know who really I should address it to, but the model that you used was not completed until March. And I wondered why it took so long for the model. I think it's the city's model. That's what I understood if I read correctly.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So in our immediate response to the event, we rely on reports from the public, observations by our staff to remedy the known locations where we see SSOs. Those were mainly occurring further south near the bay, sort of in the area near Seaport Village and the convention center sort of down south. We immediately worked to address those SSOs. We reported them to the county, conducted the appropriate monitoring in those locations. Knowing that we do have a designed overflow into the San Diego River, that location, it was under several feet of water all during this event. Our environmental consultant, who Christina mentioned, did visit that site in the days following the event. I think it was 2 or 3 days later. They saw no evidence of any sort of overflow. In the weeks following the event, we looked at our hydraulic model and concluded that there may have been an overflow at that location, and decided to include it in our report to be conservative and ensure we're being fully transparent. There remains no evidence that we did have an SSO in that location. There was some monitoring conducted by the city and county as part of our standard beach monitoring programs at Dog Beach, at the San Diego River outlet, and then in Ocean Beach north of the pier in the days following the event that did not show any elevated FIB levels. But it does take some time to complete the hydraulic model and to come to the conclusion of where we believe the sites occurred or likely occurred.
So in the future, we should expect a 2-month time delay before we get the results from the model from the city. Is that what I'm hearing?
So there's two different kinds of models involved here. One is related to flow modeling to calculate volumes. The other is related to hydraulic modeling for levels. Both are fairly complex. Both do require a thorough analysis.
So did you enter new data in it or expanded the area on the hydraulic flow model? Is that what occurred?
We do continue to adapt and evolve our models as we go.
Okay, well, maybe you can explain that to us at another time when you come before us, hopefully not about a spill, because they seem to be pretty costly. My last question is to our prosecution team, and that is you have a culpability score. And given the fact that these guards cost so little, and I know that your budget is around $100 million a year to go through and do replacement repair in your system. I'm wondering why we decided on the culpability score we did. Because it seems to me if to solve a problem is a very low cost, it should weigh more heavily, than if, oh, well, we need to change certain things in a pump, which can take months. I think on the other big spill, you had the timeline to upgrade the pump was about 5 years. It was a considerable amount of time. So since this is such a small item, fairly easy, I'd like to understand that.
So we're talking about the discharger conduct factor. And for degree of culpability, as you know, it's a range from 0.75 to 1.5. And the higher the value indicates a higher negligence. And a lower culpability is for accidental or non-negligent behavior.
I think
right?
you gave it 1.1.
We,
Is that right?
yes, we did. So the 1.1 is reflective of, remember there was a couple of different things going on. And one of them was that the standard operating procedure is to use 7 pumps at most. And so the city demonstrated that it was not negligent in the fact that it had been trying to repair 2 pumps for over 7 years, I believe. And the city was following the recommendations of a condition assessment report that came out in 2018 that said that that the pumps needed some repair work to be initiated within 5 years. And so the city had done that. And those level sensors also were replaced. I think they were only 2 years old. They were replaced. There was hydrostatic pressure sensors, I believe, in the wet wells before that. And then these were newer pieces of equipment. So we don't see negligence. I think we're talking.
So you didn't see that a piece of equipment that cost $86 could be placed in, and then it would have given them an accurate reading, as I understand what's been said to me today? Well,
yes,
all right, I
yeah.
won't belittle this.
Okay.
I mean, or go on ad nauseum. Let me just say that I'm glad to hear all the protection guards are in your system now, so we won't have this problem. For me personally, this was an important spill because, as I understand it, at least 30 sewer lids were uplifted and sewer flowed into the street. So that means all your ratepayers were, affected. I read that you immediately posted those sites and took all the public safety measures to ensure that your citizens or your ratepayers were safe. I think, when I look at this in the future, I hope that we can encourage you to be as proactive as possible. So anything that you see that is inexpensive, I'd say act on it. It's a fairly minor cost, and most costs associated with your pumps and pipes, they are multi-million dollar costs. So that's all. And I certainly will leave this up to your judgment. I'm not asking for any change. I just wanted to understand it. Thank you.
Celeste, would you like to comment?
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Yen?
I know how many years do you
Yes, and I want to thank the city for the statement ahead and saying the lessons learned and so forth. But I also want to remind the city that if we can be belating the point a little bit by Dr. Olson, but in terms of climate change and resiliency in the system, I mean, the metro system is so huge. And I realize this is one incident, but hopefully from the lessons learned, we'll be able to look at the other system and make sure that it's there, because as we all know, climate change, the Evans River, all those incidents going to happen more and more. So please, I applaud you for that.
Thank you. I want to thank the city and our staff for how hard you worked to come up with a collaborative result here. And I know that isn't easy. And so I appreciate all your hard work. I'm going to vote to approve it. However, I have a couple of questions, ongoing concerns, let's say. First off, I've been at this almost 15 years, and I think every one of the major events like this, we've never had a fine this big, I don't think, but still, they've been related to heavy weather events, heavy rain events. And I don't understand how stormwater gets into this sanitary sewer system. I mean, I've had some explanations, but I mean, this is huge. And the kinds of increase you see, that's not just water running down a manhole cover. So I'm hoping at some point, that we don't have to discuss it here, but somebody could explain to me or tell me if there's ongoing research that is being done or needs to be done on how we, and I think you mentioned upstream, how do we keep these huge flows from getting into our system? Because no matter how much you fix your pumps, and at some point, as we know with the Tijuana River, the flow is going to overcome anything and everything we do. So we should be looking and we've talked several times about atmospheric rivers. We know extreme weather events are becoming more common and bigger. So the idea of looking at hardening the system upstream rather than just dealing with it after the fact is something that collaboratively we need to keep working on. Maybe we have a working group at some point, or maybe just an information item and bring in some other people and see if there's some areas that we can help research better to help you not have to just build bigger pumps. The other part of my concern is this is a broken record. We heard about it very briefly from our outdoor outreach people. We're basically giving away $5.5 million here. It's going up into the state cleanup fund, which is fine, but we could have targeted that to help somehow with this problem or to mediate the effect of it on your ratepayers, our citizens. I understand there's some difficulties with this supplemental environmental project, SEPS, has been around a long time. I remember it when I first got on here, I thought, well, this is really cool. We could do things along the river with it. We could do other things. And it's somehow become too difficult to do. We need to understand what that is. Is it legal issues? Is it bureaucratic issues? Do we need to go to Sacramento and change the wording somehow? I mean, it's a great project. For those that may not know, a SEP basically allows us to take half of a fine and use it locally to mitigate or to help prevent continuing problems like that. And yet, you know, we haven't been able to use one in a long time, at least not on a big scale. So if we can do something going forward to give us that tool back, I think that's important. With that, unless there's other comments.
Why did we not come to an agreement on the project? Is there, just cannot find a project? You mentioned in the report that a SEP project was not identified.
Yes, both parties were open to the concept of a SEP or ECA, and we discussed it for months, but we could not come to an agreement. There's criteria that we need to meet, and we could not come to an agreement.
In that case, executive officer, is there a way for us to look at this program again and see if there are obstacles to in the future to make it workable?
Thank you, Board Member Two. A couple of points. First of all, in response to legislation, our staff have prepared a SEP list that includes projects identified by multiple parties, including the City of San Diego. It appears in this case that they weren't able to come to an agreement on a project on that list or a project to add to that list. There are some constraints in the code in terms of what kind of projects can be funded with SEPs. SEPs also do not come free. They do require staff time to manage and administer over time during implementation. And there are liability risks if the SEP in some way fails or is incomplete. And in final, both the parties have to be in agreement on the SEP, the prosecution team and the City of San Diego. I won't speculate on what projects they considered or didn't consider, but they weren't able to come to an agreement. The board has also directed the prosecution team to bring forward cases as expeditiously as practicable. And so I'm sure that a time constraint of several months, they didn't wish to delay this any further, would be my estimate of the decision. But at this point in time, they do not have a SEP identified for this project. And while there are opportunities in the future, those are the several constraints that help govern whether or not the SEPs can be approved. I do hope that the State Water Resources Control Board will feel very warm about our proposal for some of the funds from that account if the board should approve this settlement today. We'll be putting in about $11.4 million. I'm hoping that they will see that there's important needs in our region for projects like the sediment quality objectives monitoring I identified, but that's not a condition of your vote here today. I'm making that request anyway.
And as a resident of San Diego County and a taxpayer, I appreciate what you're saying. It's just sometimes I get a little bit frustrated and feels that, you know, we're all trying to benefit our resident. And I know things like this happen and fine is duly placed and all stuff like that. I just want to make sure that we're being practical about it because I'm just a very practical person. So I appreciate the information. On that note, I'll be happy to make a motion to accept the settlement.
I'd like to second the motion, but I'd also like to make a comment. I also agreed with our chair regarding this, the amount of this fine, even though I thought that the culpability perhaps should have been higher. And the reason for it is your ratepayers will pay for this fine. And your ratepayers suffered the consequences of the spill. And so it's my personal opinion. I don't want them to, you know, have to pay anymore or suffer anymore. And therefore I second the motion.
Not to take us backwards, I just have one quick question. So of all the pump stations operated by the city, you know, about I think 85 or something like that, Are there any other pump stations right now where you are working on more than one pump? More than one pump is sitting offline because of repairs or maintenance needed?
So thank you. You're correct. We do have, I believe, it's 85 pump stations located throughout our system. We have 3 very large ones, pump 1, 2, and 64. The rest are fairly small. Right now, we don't have any pump stations that are exceeding the +1 capacity.
Okay.
And I'll just note, we do have CIP projects in place for modernization of both pump station 1 and 2. They are both $100 million plus projects. We're going beyond the recommendations of our condition assessment from 2018, which said to repair or rehab our pumps. We're going to replace all of them at both pump stations. And both should be complete in the coming years.
That's great. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Would you call the roll, please, Chris?
Ms. Blair,
Aye.
Ms. Cantu,
Aye.
Dr. Olson,
Aye.
Ms. Chu,
Aye.
Chair Strawn.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Executive Officer, have we missed anything? We need to.
No, Chair Strawn, we have not. Just for the record, there were no speakers online for the item and no speakers in the room who have to address the board on that matter. So we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that, we stand adjourned. We don't have a closed session today. Bye, Celeste.